Some of you who have been around my channel for a while might find this video a bit rich on the face of it, might have seen the title or the thumbnail of this video and gone, oh, that's quite a swerve. I thought this guy was Mr. Chromebook at one point, and yes indeed, I have made a lot of videos about Chromebooks in the past, and here we are talking about ditching Google somewhat. So I think the bottom line is things are complicated and, you know, people aren't one thing or the other, or at least I try not to be. And honestly, if you actually watched a lot of my Chromebook videos, a lot of them were quite critical of Chromebooks, of Google. You know, a lot of things weren't, you know, perfect in that ecosystem. And a big part of it is that in the past, I was more optimistic about cloud computing in general, I suppose. I think big tech has truly squandered the potential of the cloud. It's still possible to imagine cool and interesting and innovative uses of cloud technology, but I just don't think that's what we've seen in recent years. And at the moment, I feel like most cloud software and cloud services, particularly consumer-facing, are just these boring, rigid services that are trying to lock you into an ecosystem, and they're designed by risk-averse corporations. We're seeing stories every week about cloud services just getting, you know, worse and worse all the time. And turning to Google in particular, I just feel like Google has let me down so much over the years that it's really become very clear that it's, you know, not wise to give them too much power over what I do. Some of the things that Google did in recent years that made me much more wary of my relationship with them is just, I mean, we all know about how they kill services off left, right, and center. Killing off Google Play Music, that one really hurt me. That was a great service that did not need to go, and they just got rid of it for still kind of ambiguous reasons. Every time I've contacted Google support, I've had an issue and I've got on their chat or something. They've absolutely had no idea what they're talking about. And it's just, if that's what support people in their company are saying, just having no idea what they're doing, then it's difficult to have much more trust in other people in the corporation that you're not aware of and other decisions that are being made. And then, you know, a specific thing that really just drove me mad recentishly is when I was trying to have a local backup of my photos that were in Google Photos, because I thought Google Photos is great. I love having all my photos there organized beautifully in the cloud on Google Photos. I can access them from my phone, from any device. It's lovely. But my photos are so important to me and have so much photo and video content that I really wanted a local copy. I don't think that's too much to ask. One cloud copy, one local copy is kind of the bare minimum of what you would want in a kind of backup plan. I spent so much time working to get rClone set up to back up my Google Photos to local storage. Technically, on paper, it is kind of supposed to work, but in practice, as hard as rClone developers are working, they're just having to put up with so many issues in the Google API. It's not easy. It's not a nice process. And don't even get me started on Google Takeout. Google Takeout is not a backup solution anyway. So anyway, when I realized I couldn't successfully back up my Google Photos to local storage in a seamless kind of ongoing synchronous way, that's when I decided it's time to start getting out. So that's what I've been doing for the last year or so, is just taking a healthy little step backwards from Google. So in this video, I'm going to talk in a broad sense about how you do it, basically, how you do make yourself less reliant on Google if you've been using all of their services. And so many people are doing it at the moment, and there's so many ways to do it, and so many alternate apps and services to every single one of the apps that Google provides. And I'm not going to be able to mention them all here, nor am I going to try to, but it's worth noting that there are so many resources out there, like the dgoogle subreddit, and there's this great list on GitHub that has just heaps of alternate apps that you can use if you're trying to get away from a Google service. So many options out there. So in this video, you're just going to get a broad overview. But first of all, just a little bit more about why? Well, I just think there are really many reasons these days to be less reliant on Google. I mean, one is kind of gaining more control and flexibility over your internet use, your computer use, your data. Like I mentioned with Google Play Music, apps can often change and die. They can lose features, lose compatibility with other services, and you just have no power over that. And we've got good old enshittification, which is just such a common thing we're seeing everywhere nowadays. So much software isn't being updated and iterated upon with us in mind, with the user. It's with advertising, it's with corporate growth in mind. And yeah, everything's getting more expensive all the time. Every subscription fee just going up and up and up. And yeah, moving away from Google for many people just is about having more ownership of your data and more privacy. And, you know, we're in a world that's become more and more connected very, very quickly. And I think this is the logical kind of reverse or other side of the coin of that, is that I just think it makes sense to start taking control of your data more seriously. There are also the high-minded ideals that could come along with this, you know, the desire for a better open internet and not wanting to be a part of the endless corporate, you know, consumerist society that's destroying the planet and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, sometimes you can say to yourself, oh, I'm doing an ethically good thing, and make yourself feel better. And this is a time when Google is under a lot of scrutiny, understandably, all these antitrust cases that are coming at them. So who knows what's going to happen in Google's future, whether services are, you know, going to get divided apart and things. And the last thing I'll say before we get into some specifics of the process is it's easier to leave these big tech ecosystems than you think, than they want you to think. They do a very good job of making you feel like you are locked in. Ultimately, if you want to get out, you can. All right, so I've kind of broken down the move away from Google into like 5 broad layers. The first one is owning your email. I mean, email is still your home base. It's like the center of all your online operations. Yeah, it's still the thing we use to sign up to any website, to get contacted by people. If we're changing a password on any website, it's where they send the confirmation email. So getting away from Gmail, I think, is the big main major first step if you're de-Googling. Of course, there are so many options out there in terms of Gmail alternatives. Personally, I've gone with Proton, which is a very popular alternative, particularly if you're thinking about kind of data privacy and things, because it's all encrypted and a fairly trustworthy company. Other big ones that are named a lot, you know, you've got your Tutor, you've got Fastmail, I see mentioned quite positively. I don't know what this is, Purely Mail. I'm certainly not vouching for it, but I just thought I'd bring it up because I've seen it mentioned a couple times. And basically, most of these services, there are free options, but really you're going to want to pay. And that's the thing. I know Gmail is free, but, you know, that's partly why you can't trust it, because why is it free? These other services that are more trustworthy you are going to have to pay a bit for your email. This Purely Mail place, if they're trustworthy, are just very cheap, $10 a year. You can go and have a look yourself. They seem interesting. And then the other thing that you can do with email, if you want to take it a step further, is get a custom domain. And a lot of these services, like Proton, I'm sure some of the others as well, let you link very easily your custom domain with your email account. And this just improves yet again your data security, because it means even if that service went down, you would still have your custom domain and you could still receive emails there and use that domain, those custom email addresses, on a different provider. It means we're not getting attached or linked or signing in blood with another service that isn't Google and becoming locked in. We don't want to be locked in. That's a point of all of this. So a custom domain is another thing that you could get on top, and that's very cheap to do. You know, you can find custom domains for under $10 a year. So that's number 1, owning your email. Number 2 is hiding your activity. Search is your portal to information, and this is, you know, Google's bread and butter, right? Google search. The big alternative out there, the one I've been using, DuckDuckGo, I think it's the no-brainer. It's really quite good. I don't have any issues with DuckDuckGo. The very few times when I've been slightly disappointed with the results I'm getting in DuckDuckGo, I mean, then you can just pull up google.com and see if that finds what you're looking for. But really, using DuckDuckGo 95% of the time, I haven't even noticed a difference. And it's just a great alternative. It's a privacy-respecting search engine. Good stuff. There are others out there too if you want to go quite extreme. There's this I don't know how you pronounce that, SeerXNG. This can actually even be self-hosted. So that's if you're going to the extreme. Self-host your own search engine. How good is it? Put myself in here to give it a try. Yeah, it's pulling up stuff about me. What is that? Finding things out about myself. Oh, they've got this like alternate YouTube interface. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, probably a more privacy-respecting YouTube interface. But anyway, that's just to show there are even greater privacy-respecting options if you want to go that far. I'm happy with DuckDuckGo. The other big thing here is changing your web browser. If you're using Chrome, there are really just such better alternatives at the moment, particularly with Chrome phasing out uBlock Origin, and we'll come back to uBlock Origin in a bit. But some other browsers that are perfectly great to look into are like Vivaldi and Brave. They both are so similar to Chrome. They're based on Chromium anyway. They're just more privacy respecting. Ungoogled Chromium is what I'm actually using to present these websites to you right now. Is great. I really like it because it's no nonsense. I mean, Vivaldi and Brave, they're great, but they do add all these features and functions that if you don't want them, you have to switch them off. Whereas Ungoogled Chromium really is just vanilla and quiet and just does what you want. But then to really get away from Google in the browser department, you got to go to Firefox or something built on Firefox. So Firefox itself is great, of course, but then I highly recommend LibreWolf, which is just basically Firefox, but a little bit more hardened for a little bit more privacy. And it's got uBlock Origin already included. But then actually another browser built on Firefox that I've been loving is Zen Browser, which... it does have its own website here. I'll show you its website. I was going straight to its GitHub, but this looks better for you. It's still in alpha, so it's buggy, but I have actually been using it as my main browser for a while now, and I'm loving it. It's apparently similar to Arc, but basically it's built on Firefox, privacy focused, got great productivity features. It's all about vertical tabs, which at first I was like, I don't know if I can get on board with this, but now it didn't take me long. After a few days, I was like, I'm never going back to horizontal tabs, even though I'm using horizontal tabs right now just for this video. But in my main browser, I use vertical tabs, and when you have a lot of tabs, it's actually really nice, and Zen Browser is built around that. One little concern that I have is it seems to be maintained at the moment by like one person, one seemingly trustworthy person, but one person, if something happens there, then is that the browser done or what? But anyway, it's open source, as you can see. It's on GitHub. It's getting regular releases at the moment, and I'm really liking where it's headed. So that's a great option. The other thing, going back to kind of Firefox versus Chromium, is I definitely still run some Chromium browsers. I actually use Edge a bit as well for like uni and work stuff, just because it is easy. And these days there are some websites that sometimes work better on Chromium. A little while ago, I found that playing YouTube videos was a little bit smoother in Chromium-based browsers rather than Firefox-based ones. Again, it's about not getting locked into a certain kind of service, so it's really okay to have multiple browsers for different uses, I say. Particularly if you're watching a video like this, if you're thinking about it this much, if you're coming this far, don't just stick to one. I mean, you can have your main one, and I'm loving Zen, but I've also, I've got Edge, I've got Ungoogled Chromium. I think I use a couple of different ones on my phone. It's nice to have that freedom. And yes, so a little while ago, I mentioned uBlock Origin. So essentially, uBlock Origin is really good at blocking ads, and really, ads are synonymous with tracking, and tracking is what we don't want when we're talking about getting away from Google. So I have uBlock Origin installed on all my browsers. I run it all the time. It's a no-brainer kind of step. If you want to go a little bit further, which I have gone a little bit further, is you can start doing some more intensive kind of DNS blocking. I've set up Pi-hole because I had a bit of spare time and a spare old laptop that I could hook up to the router. And Pi-hole is basically blocking ads on my whole network locally, which is pretty cool. There are other ways to do it as well. There's AdGuard. People say great things about AdGuard. There's also NextDNS, which is the easier option, I think. And I've used it a bit as well, and it's really good. You don't have to set up anything locally. It's not self-hosted, so you don't have to have an old laptop hooked up to a router. This one, you can really just sign up and connect all your devices to it, and it will intelligently just start blocking ads and, other threats and hackers and things across all of your devices. One of these kind of DNS blocking services is a great idea. Ever since I've been using Pi-hole, whole. I've just loved how much kind of quieter and more visually appealing the whole internet has been. It hasn't been covered in so many ads on every page, and it's been faster too. I've noticed the difference in the speed that websites load and things because they're not having to pull down these animated ads and things. It's just a much nicer experience. Of course, Pi-hole and AdGuard have great free versions. NextDNS has a good free version as well, but also not that expensive if you upgrade to a pro version as well. So really recommend something like that. And a lot of VPNs often have a DNS blocking option as well that you can turn on while you're connected to the VPN. So that's good too. The next big step is to know where your data is. So here I'm mainly thinking about kind of when you're using Google Drive or Google Photos, you know, your data's just up there in the cloud. Do you have a local copy of it? Do you know what's happening with it up there? My favorite option here is to just have enough local storage for your data if you possibly can. There's nothing like having the data you own on a little brick in your home, you know? Even if it's up there as well, having a copy here, I think is just great for peace of mind. And of course, how easy that is depends on how much data you have. I've worked a lot with video, so I have a lot, so I've needed some massive hard drives, which thankfully, you know, compared to the increasing prices of cloud storage, aren't that expensive in the long run. You can get some big hard drives nowadays. And yeah, whether they're external or inside a computer, you know, you can have your data locally. And the great thing is there really are so many excellent ways to synchronize your data between devices without using something like Google Drive. Best option, absolutely, would be, in my opinion, SyncThing, which basically allows you to hook up storage on different computers, different devices, even your phone, and have your data synchronized between those devices without it ever going up to some cloud where you don't know what's happening. It can take a minute or two to learn how SyncThing is set up, but of course, there are YouTube videos for that. In terms of having your photos locally, my solution has been Immich, which is just this incredible self-hosted photo software. It basically, as you can see here, looks just like Google Photos. It's even got phone apps where you can sync your photos, and it's just a brilliant experience if you're not daunted by getting it set up on your own hardware. If you are, then I recommend having a look at Entei Photos, which also very similar to Google Photos, just much more privacy respecting. It's got end-to-end encryption. And yeah, look at that. Their pricing is absolutely quite fair. And so Entei is a solution that you don't have to self-host. It really is just like Google Photos, just more privacy respecting. And going back to your general data, if you don't want to host that locally or don't just want to host that locally, there are more privacy respecting alternatives to Google Drive, like, Proton Drive for one. There are many other options out there. The next step of this whole process is one that I'm still kind of undertaking slowly, and it's mindfully tweaking your setup and which apps and services you use. And it really opens your perspective into how much software there is out there. When you're not locked into an ecosystem, you can actually explore the best options out there. Like, for example, Obsidian is the Notes app that I've gone with as my alternative to Google Keep. And it's one of many options that all just have much more functionality than Google Keep will ever have. And there's other little things like if you're on Android, changing from Google Keyboard to a different keyboard. Because yes, the Google Keyboard that you type on your phone is not privacy respecting. And this is my favorite option so far that I've tried. The Futo keyboard is still in development, but since switching to this, I haven't noticed much of a difference, which is kind of the biggest compliment I can give. It does everything that I want out of the keyboard on my phone. And is even quite good at the swipe and round thing, which I do like to do from time to time. Actually, a lot. I do it a lot. Ditching YouTube is one of the harder things to do. There really isn't much big competition to YouTube out there. Then there are other things, like I've tried to ditch Google News, and in doing that, for the moment, I've actually gone back to RSS. So I've just added RSS feeds for a lot of sources that I like to read to this app that I'm self-hosting, Miniflux. But there are, of course, so many options for RSS readers. And as you can see, yeah, this whole operation has gotten me self-hosting a fair few things, which is the last stage, I would say, of this process. The control freak stage. It's switching to Linux. It's self-hosting. I'm using Unraid. It is a learning process to set it up for sure. Takes some time, takes some effort. But of course you can self-host with much easier setups like a Synology or QNAP NAS. And all of these options will just give you so much more control over what you're doing with your data than when you were with Google. And then the other extreme, the most extreme step that I've taken is changing my phone's operating system. I've switched over to Graphene OS. Graphene OS only works on Google Pixels. Ironically, yes, it's a very privacy respecting operating system, but you need a Google phone to use it. But it's quite good. I wouldn't recommend it just to anyone. As much as it does manage to maintain the kind of Google Pixel experience, there are concessions and there are kind of so many more options in the settings of how everything is working, because basically it containerizes all of your apps so they can't speak to each other quite as easily, and Google can't be watching everything you do in every app. So it's great and super promising, and this has been the last thing that I've done, and I'm still getting used to it. So we'll see if I stick with it. I think I will stick with it, but I'm still in that learning process. And that would be my advice if you're following me in any of these steps, is to not overdo it too quickly. It's okay to take your time. You don't have to do all these things at once. Just taking a couple of steps, really changing your email provider and your web browser, I think are probably the most impactful things you can do, and will not only kind of improve your privacy and get you away from Google, they'll actually, I think, improve just your general experience with using the internet. I just think there are better alternatives out there than just using Gmail and just using Chrome. So if you just do those two things, you've limited the extent to which Google can track your life significantly, and everything you do after that has diminishing returns. It's all a process. It's a process that I'm still going through. And I still use YouTube, obviously. I still use Google Maps, the Google Play Store. Often Google Drive is still just the easiest way to send a file to someone. And as I said, sometimes Google Search is the easiest way to find something that you're looking for. So you really don't have to go cold turkey. We're not machines, even though I've been talking about machines, we're not, and the way we use them isn't black and white. And it's all just really about doing what makes you feel good and safe and free and content and happy. And I do think de-Googling a bit where you can as a process has so many benefits. People mostly seem to de-Google out of privacy concerns and things like that. But actually, on a day-to-day basis, the main benefit that I've found is just getting to use such a much better range of apps and services, which are better, which suit me better, which allow me to customize them more, which are actually designed to help me and not to take my data and use it for advertising. And on top of that, it does just feel good to know where my data is, that I'm in control of it, that some corporation's decision or whim isn't going to easily affect it. And, I see fewer ads, I'm locked into fewer subscription fees, and I think those are all good things. So that's an overview of how this experience has been for me so far. Of course, as I said, it's a process that I'm still going through and I'm going to keep talking about. But for now, thanks for watching. Adios.